You've probably seen the typewriter text effect in quite a few video games, where the text starts from one side of the screen and then comes in one letter at a time till the text is filled. To make this effect, I will be using range 1.6, but any version of range will work. If you're using UPBGE, you can also make it work there. Getting started in our fresh scene, I just have my default cube. If you're using range, then most of the time this default cube will probably have a component on it. So let's go to the component panel in the properties tab. And in component, let's just remove that component. And in our text editor, we can select that text and unlink it because we're not going to be needing it. Let's destroy the default cube and press 3 on the numpad and 5. So we're going to set our cursor to the center of the world, and then we're going to add a camera. We'll press 0 to go into the camera, and then G and Z twice to move it out. Then we'll move our camera up. There we go. I'll probably move it up just a tad more. Now that we have that, let's add a little plane in front of the camera. We'll put our text inside of here just to make it a little bit easier to see. There we go. Then let's give it a material. We're going to give this a darker material, and we'll probably put it on shadeless, and then we'll make it slightly transparent. So we'll just press Shift S and then cursor to selected. Then we'll add in our text. Then let's rotate this text 90 degrees on the X and Z axis. That way it's right up against our background here. You can see that our text is still clipping into the background, so we'll just want to drag that forward just a slight bit. Then we'll scale our text down till it's about the size we want it. If we zoom out and press play, we can see our text in our background. So with our text selected, let's go to the Python component, and we're going to create a new Python component. We'll call the module text effect, and the component we'll call text. Now that we have our text component, we can go over to our text editor and select the script. Every time you create a script, you'll be given this template and all this information here. So all this commented out code, let's just get rid of it for now. We're not going to need it for what we're doing. Press Ctrl and X to cut that, and we're going to paste it into our wake function. So in our start function, where it's blank, we're going to do pass again. That way it doesn't run start and give us an error. Now we need to do a couple of things. We need to add a text game property to our text. We'll be using this text game property to change our text during runtime. We'll leave it on string since we're going to be using strings. So now that we have our text game property, what we're also going to want is a timer, because we want our text to actually add each character over a set amount of time. So to do that, we're going to add a game property. We're going to call this timer. I like to have it uppercase, and we're going to change the type to timer. There we go. So now we need to access this timer in our script. So in our script, in the awake function, we're going to say self.timer, and we'll do this timer in lowercase. Then we'll say equals self.object. This is going to reference the object that the script is on, and then we want to get the property on this object, which is our timer property. So we'll paste that in here. So instead of just putting all of our code in the update, we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to make a few lines in between the start and update, and we're going to say def, and we want the name of our function, which is going to be text effect for our function. Then we'll add parentheses, and then a semicolon. Inside the parentheses, we want to do self, since we're going to be referencing the object the script is on, and then we have a function we can work with. So now we want to give our timer some functionality. So in order to do so, we'll go self.timer is plus equals 1. So this is going to count 1, but instead of just counting up 1, we want to multiply it by logic.delta time, like so, with parentheses on the end. So we can test this out by printing. So we'll print self.timer. There we go. And we will instantiate our function in the update loop. So we'll do self.textEffect, and then our parentheses on the end. So if we press play, we'll have our game running, and if I open up the console, we can see that we have a functional timer. So the first thing we need to do is actually make a message that our text is going to play. So in order to do this, let's go back up to our variables in the awake function and do a new one called self.message equals a string. There we go. And we're just going to do a empty string here. Now that we have that, let's go into our text effect function again. And at the very top, let's add another line, and we'll do self.message. And this is where we'll actually put our message. And we'll say this equals string, and we'll put our text in here. So in here, we'll say hello world, because it's fun. And under our message variable, we're going to want to get the length of our message. To do this, we're going to want to use a local variable, and we'll call this check underscore message. There we go. Equals length. So we're going to get the length of our string, so len for length, and then our parentheses. Inside the parentheses, we're just going to put self.message. So this is going to get the length of characters that is actually in our message variable. We can test this out by going into here, and we'll just print. And we can print our check message local variable. If we press play and we look at our console, we can see that this number here is the amount of characters we have in our string. This is going to be important since we're going to be accessing the string's index. First of all, we want to make it so our timer, after it gets to a certain value, resets to 0. So let's get rid of all of our print statements, and we'll just get rid of this print timer as well. And we're going to want to make a local timer variable now. So we'll do underscore timer equals self.timer. And this is just so it accesses the variable inside the function and doesn't have to jump outside of the function to go find it again. Now that we have that, we'll go down and we're going to do an if statement. So if underscore timer is greater, then we'll say 0.3 for now. Then self.timer, so we're going to set our self.timer variable, like so, back to 0. So that'll equal 0. Should have probably kept that, so we'll print that again. So print, just to check it out, and we'll say underscore timer. When we press play, we can see that our timer goes up to 0.3 and then goes back down to 0 and does that over and over again. So this will be very good for our text processor. Alrighty, so let's get rid of this print statement again, just because I don't want it running in the console all the time. Now we're going to affect our text with the message that we have. So in order to do this, let's do self.object, and we'll do this outside the if statement, just in the update loop. So self.object, and then we'll do our square brackets. Inside the square brackets, we'll put quotes, and we'll do text. So this is just going to be getting our text property from our text object, and we'll just say it equals self.message. So if we press play, our text will have our words on it. Obviously it is spilling off the screen, so I might just take this text and scale it down a little bit more. Sweet! So now we have our string printing on the screen. But we actually want our effect to work here. In order to do this, we're going to want to get each letter in our string and increment them over time. So to get the letter in our string, we can go onto the end of our message, our self.message, and we're going to put on some square brackets. This is going to access the message as a list. To test this, we can do 0, because 0 is going to be the first character in our message. And if we press play, we have our H in here for our hello world. So we're going to want to be able to increment this over time. In order to do that, we'll add a little bit more space here. So we're going to go back up to the awake function and then add a new variable called self.character. So we'll just do car. And this is going to equal an integer value of 0. Now that we have our variable character, we're going to want to increment this over time using our time variable. So we're going to say if underscore timer is greater than 0.3, then we're going to put our semicolon on the end. Then we're going to say self.car is going to be plus equal 1. So this is going to increment our character by 1. We're going to test this out by printing it, self.car, like so, and we'll press play. So when we press play and go into our console, oh, we got an error. Oh, Python is fickle, isn't it? Make sure that your indentation is correct here. All right, so when we press play, we have our H, and we can see that our character is incrementing. So now that we have our character incrementing, all we have to do is say self.message, and instead of having the 0 in here, we're going to do self.car. When we press play, we'll see that our characters are incrementing, but they're not adding, they're just showing up. So in order to actually have them go across the screen, instead of doing equal, we're going to want to do plus equal, just like we add to our character. So now when we press play, so you can see it's just kind of freaking out right now. It's because we're adding this every single tick, and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to tab that in there right underneath our if statement. And I'll just go onto this line and press Control Shift and then my up arrow, just like that. And And we want this to be incrementing our character and then changing our text accordingly. So we'll do plus equals self.message, and then we will be incrementing by our character here. So when we press play, you can see that our text is finally adding just the way we want it to. It's a little bit slow, but we have a problem. We can see that the text is still there from our original text, and the H in our hello is not actually there. Let's just remove the text. So we'll just go into edit mode and then backspace our text. Then when we press play, we'll see hello. But I don't think we want to start every single sentence with our missing letter. So in order to fix that, all we have to do is go into our square brackets here and we'll say -1. And this will make it so our H actually pops up. There we go. Hello world. So let's actually speed our text up a little bit by going to our timer. So if timer is greater than 0.3, and we'll say 0.1 just to speed it up quite a bit. And we'll have to do this for our timer up here as well. So it cycles from 0.1 and then goes back to 0. When we press play, we can see it scroll quite a bit faster now. But we'll run into a problem here. When we go into our console, we can see we got a string index out of range error. This is because it was trying to increment our string past the actual end value of our index. In order to fix this, all we have to do is go into our if statement. Right past the 0.1, we're going to write and then we're going to want to get our character. So self.character. There we go. And we want to say self.character is less than, and we want to use our check message variable. So we'll do check message like so. And our check message is going to give us the final character value, which is 44 of our string. And we'll say if character is less than our check message. And when we press play, we can see our text going across the screen. Very cool. And if we go into our console, we can see that it is incrementing and not ending our game. What's great about this is you can change this to any length of text you want. So we could say, now obviously this is going to spill off the screen, but we'll have a fix for that as well. So if we press play, we'll let it go across the screen again, and it will flood out unceremoniously. But if we go to our console, we can see that it is updated with our characters, and it's still not going out of range because we're using that check message variable to make sure it stops before it crashes. Now, so we can actually fix it from our text just spilling across the screen, what we can do is in our string, we know that the test portion is still on screen, and all we have to do is do our backslash and then n, and this will drop our text one line. And because it's going to drop this line and it's going to count the space, we don't want that, so we're just going to remove that space right there. So if we press play, we can see our text going across the screen, and once it gets to that /n, it'll drop a line and keep on going. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, think about leaving a comment. If there's anything you thought that I should have added, let me know about it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.